Baltimore's top prosecutor hits the streets for a crime wall.
We're on the same page. Let's do this together.
The quality of life issues residents want fixed right now.
Some people are wanting to leave because it's that bad.
Plus, the mayor draws strong criticism from a former judge over the crime crisis.
He needs to know how to lead.
How she says he's failing the people of Baltimore. Plans to add more costly bike lanes on city roads. New tonight, we examine if residents are getting their money's worth and how many people are actually using them. Then, city leaders race against the clock to spend more than $500 million in COVID funding.
This one-time amount of money, the city will never see again.
Why some are concerned the money won't go where it's needed most.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Fox 45 is following breaking news right now out of North Baltimore. Police have confirmed 2 men are in critical condition following a shooting. This is a live look at the scene along West 29th Street in the Remington neighborhood in North Baltimore.
Police are clearing out now, but they say it's an ongoing investigation. So Fox 45 will continue to follow this breaking story and bring you updates on air and online at foxbaltimore.com.
Quality of life crimes also top of mind for many in Baltimore.
From a retired judge to the Baltimore City State's attorney, Fox 45 is hearing from people who say the city has to do more when it comes to decreasing so-called low-level crimes.
If my car is missing or there's been a windshield broken, it's affecting my ability to feed my children. Why do we have to choose which things we're going to have and which things we're not?
We just have to get down to the nitty-gritty. We just have to do it.
Good evening and thanks so much for joining us. I'm Maxine Stryker.
And I'm Kai Jackson. Those frustrations are echoed during a community crime walk in Morrill Park this afternoon. City State's Attorney Ivan Bates walked with residents to listen and hear their concerns.
And we have team coverage tonight, starting with Fox 45's Vincent Hill. He was at today's walk and has more on what residents want for their neighborhood.
Well, Maxine and Kai, quite simply, they say they want what a Fed Hill or a Fells Point gets, more police presence, and they want lawlessness to stop in their neighborhood.
In the Morrill Park neighborhood.
Before I got elected and said, hey, if you give me a chance, I'm gonna be back.
City State's Attorney Ivan Bates keeping his promise.
It's getting that bad.
Walking and talking with residents about their concerns. Top of mind for many, quality of life crimes.
The Royal Farm Store is an open drug use place. You can just go up there, you can stand in front in the morning, and you can get your cup of coffee, and you can also get your dope.
Open air drug markets and rampant prostitution.
We just literally had someone got picked up on the boulevard like a minute ago by John, picked somebody up.
Just feet away from our cameras.
We're here to make sure we have your back, that we're a part. We have not forgotten you.
Bates telling residents he hears them loud and clear.
And we just have to get down to the nitty-gritty. We just have to do it. Whatever happened in the past happened. We're on the same page. Let's do this together.
One person who appears to be on the same page.
Over the last 10 years or so, less than 10 years, it's been a neglected area.
Candidate for mayor and former mayor Sheila Dixon praising Ivan Bates' citation docket used to go after low-level crimes.
This is a prime example of where the citation process could work effectively. Not locking up, but you're giving citations, you're giving warnings, you're telling them, hey, you can't lauder, you can't do this, and then go through the process.
In the neighborhood so far this year, there have been 6 auto thefts, 3 robberies, a carjacking, and 2 burglaries. The Morrill Park community, just over 1 square mile in total.
We're not talking Roland Park in, Howard County. This is a solid middle-class neighborhood, and the people want to stay in this community. But if it continues like this, you're going to lose some of those good people.
And during that 5-block walk, I lost count of how many discarded needles were on the grounds and in the alleyways. For now, we're live in Baltimore. Vincent Hill, Fox 45 News.
Vincent, thank you. Vincent mentioned the city citation docket. Ivan Bates launched that last year to tackle quality of life crimes that the Mosby administration didn't prosecute. In the past week, the docket's effectiveness has come into question. The question started last Wednesday at a city oversight hearing. That's when we learned BPD has only issued 37 citations that have made it to court. Nearly half were rejected because of mistakes. Police say it came down to incorrect wording.
Why is the volume of citations issued so low.
It's still a process for us, right, to issue a citation. Even if we see that individual doing something, we still will have other policies that doesn't say as soon as we engage, we're automatically issuing a citation.
The state's attorney says the Maryland Comptroller and Field Enforcement Bureau, which had 83 citations make it to court, more than double the amount from BPD. The MTA had 64 citations sent to court. The state's attorney's office says they offered to train city police. Initially, police didn't accept the offer. Now police say officers will undergo that training. Mayoral candidate Sheila Dixon says the mayor needs to hold police accountable.
If I were mayor, heads would be rolling. For the unexcusable behavior, the police department needs to step up. They need to get trained properly, understand what it takes, and then get out there and start providing these citations.
However, the problem isn't just with officers. The state's attorney's office says they sent an MOU to Monzi last year when the docket began to share diversion resources. However, the SAO says they never heard back.
They told us that was being reviewed by legal and then their director, but we've yet to receive any movement on that MOU. And as of January 22nd, we still had not received anything. And I know that as of today, it has yet to be signed.
MOU means a memorandum of understanding. Fox 45 News reached out to Monzi to see what their next steps would be. A spokesperson says leadership changes affected the MOU, but also says Monzi looks forward to establishing the agreement to ensure the long-term sustainability of the SAO's work.
And who should be held accountable for repeat offenders in the city? A retired judge and the mayor of Baltimore pointing fingers over that very question. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost spoke to that retired judge about what's going on.
Wanda Hurd says judges can only do so much, and she argues right now the concerns center around leadership, and that's a problem she says it will not be solved with pointing fingers. Broken glass in piles dotting the perimeter of Patterson Park. Cars getting stolen off Baltimore streets in record numbers. The latest data from Baltimore police show almost 1,100 cars have been stolen this year. That's an 82% increase compared to the same time last year.
Quality of life encompasses everything we have in our community.
Before retiring in 2019, Wanda Hurd was the chief judge in Baltimore City Circuit Court. She lives in West Baltimore, and while Mayor Brandon Scott routinely touts declining violent crime numbers like he did just days ago.
We are down 17% in homicides and 8.7, almost 9% in non-fatal shootings.
She says that's not how people are feeling in Baltimore City.
If my car is missing or there's been a windshield broken, it's affecting my ability to feed my children. Why do we have to choose which things we're going to have and which things we're not?
When Fox 45 News pressed the mayor for answers on the quality of life crimes this week, the mayor pointing fingers at the bench.
We all have to hold accountable every part of the system. So I'm not a judge, right? I don't determine how long someone stays in jail.
Judges sit on the bench. We don't fix the problems. The job and the responsibility of making it a wonderful place for us to live falls on the person we elected to do that job. And we elected a mayor to do that job. Just like we elected a state's attorney when things weren't working.
Hurd says Baltimoreans are frustrated, and those frustrations center around not feeling safe in their own communities.
The mayor is responsible for focusing and targeting on the quality of everything that happens in everyone's life.
With election season upon us, she says the future leader of Baltimore City needs to listen to the people.
If the mayor doesn't understand that even these low-level crimes are impacting his people, his citizens, and that those crimes need priority, then he doesn't understand the cries, the complaints from the people he serves.
And right now, she's not convinced that's happening. Mayor Scott says some of these issues and concerns should be addressed in Annapolis, but right now it's unclear exactly what bills the mayor's pointing to. In the newsroom, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
State lawmakers are frustrated after the judiciary paused a program for private home monitoring for people awaiting trial across Maryland. In 2021, lawmakers passed a bill creating the program for people who qualify. That's usually people who have been approved for home monitoring by a judge but can't pay for it themselves. In December, the chief judge of the district court, John Morrissey, realized the judiciary had spent $4 of the $5 million allocated for the program. Now he says the program has invoices for more than the allotted amount of money. The two largest companies providing home monitoring through the program say its future could be in jeopardy if they don't get more money. Now, lawmakers pressed Judge Morrissey about the issue during a budget hearing yesterday. The judge told them the program was cut off last week, which came as a surprise to lawmakers. Now the question is, where will the funding come from to keep people in the program?
We estimate about 650 individuals. We terminated the program on Friday, this past Friday, because we knew we were out of money. The concern is for those individuals that are currently in the pipeline right now on private home detention, in what it would take to get funding for that particular issue to keep those individuals still on private home detention.
The judge estimates that it will take about $2 million to fund the program. This morning, Senate President Bill Ferguson said the state can't just write a check. The funding has to go through the budgeting process. He says the judiciary should have told lawmakers about the problem sooner.
We have to find a short-term solution for those who are currently on monitoring, and then we have to have a broader conversation about where this should land. Ankle monitoring oversight and administration in the long term, but right now we have to solve a problem that we shouldn't be learning about in this moment, in this week. This is something that the judiciary had knowledge of, should have given us insight into ahead of session. And yet again, it feels like we have been stuck to solve a situation that could have been solved with thoughtful conversation.
The governor's office says the program was designed to be a one-time funded operation. It wasn't supposed to continue beyond the original allocation. However, he is encouraging the judiciary to work with lawmakers to continue the program. This is a developing story that Fox 45 News will continue to follow the money and keep you up to date on air and on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
We had a few showers to start off the day, and then we had a nice and dry break. We're still dry around the Baltimore metro. However, as we look west, you can see a couple of spotty showers starting to move east. These could impact us mainly after midnight, leading into the hours just past sunrise. But for the rest of the day, it looks better. However, it is going to be cool and breezy. I'll let you know how it's shaping up for the weekend coming up in my Weather Authority forecast. Back to you.
Jasmine, thank you. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 10 o'clock tonight, Fox 45 News is investigating what went wrong when more than 100,000 property tax assessments missed the legal deadline. Which agency says they messed up and how much that could cost you, the taxpayer. Prominent Republicans are gathering right here in Maryland for the 2024 Conservative Political Action Conference, known as CPAC. Why many say that conference is a campaign for vice president. And bike riders weigh in on the debate over those bike lanes in Baltimore, where some of them could be, and why the city says they might put the brakes on the Complete Streets program.
Everybody got to have the roads, you know. You got to share the roads.
Bike riders in Baltimore weighing in on the ongoing debate over the addition of bike lanes to streets across the city. It comes as the city is getting an idea of just how many people use those lanes.
Fox 45's Jeff Abel joins us live. He's been following all of these stories with the bike lanes, and he has a closer look at how many people are actually biking in Baltimore. Jeff?
You know, as the city now begins to undertake a count of how many bikers are actually using bike lanes, statistics from Washington seem to confirm what many critics have long suspected. In Charles Village today, commuters on 4 wheels were sharing the road with those on 2 wheels.
It's like they get mad at you if you stop at the stop sign. They get mad at you if you don't stop at the stop sign.
For Tony, work is 10 minutes away. Country can make it in 7.
It's a two-way street. Everybody got to have the roads, you know. You got to share the road.
But in some communities, it's not about sharing the road, but eliminating the road. Not long ago, the city shrunk Harford Road from 4 lanes to 2 lanes in order to accommodate bike lanes. But the problem is the redesigned road has backed up traffic and left the locals confused.
How many bikes have you seen? I haven't seen a bike around here since I've been around here.
At City Hall 4 months ago, transportation officials admitted they're unsure how many bikers are biking in Baltimore, even though the city cleared the way for more bike lanes to be constructed.
We did get a grant where we have installed some bike counters in certain locations. Beyond the bike counters, I don't know that we have actual data.
But information from the latest U.S. Census may provide some answers. Of the 362,000 people who commute in Baltimore, the census reports just more than 7,500, or 2%, commute by bicycle, motorcycle, or taxi cab. The census reported more people walk to work in Baltimore than bike.
I understand, again, there's this desire to put bike lanes more places, to see more bicyclists, a healthier population. I support that completely. But if what you're doing is compromising people's ability to get to work, or delivery vans being able to deliver packages, whatever it happens to be, then you got to rethink that approach.
The majority of people do not want tens of millions of dollars to be spent or misspent on making it harder to pass through the streets of Baltimore.
City planners estimate that in 4 years, the city will have spent more than $73 million on bike lanes. Some bikers are convinced the lanes will get used.
I think if you build it, they will come.
There's a big bike community in the city.
But even this biker insists commuters on 4 wheels shouldn't be paying the price for those on 2.
No, you can't eliminate vehicle lanes. I don't think they should do that. They need the lanes too.
Well, opponents have called on the city to place a moratorium on bike lanes until they can be further studied. We're live tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Jeff, thank you. There's frustration over bike lanes also in Baltimore County. The County Planning Commission is deciding whether to add 70 miles of new bike lanes. That includes the area between York Road and Charles Street in Towson. Some residents say that would be a problem because of the high traffic.
Would you ride a bike on this road?
Nah, I won't even let my kids ride a bike.
As a resident, I just don't know how much use actual bikers would get out of them. I think you need to get the data first from the bikers and say, are you using these roads? You know, is this the route you would even take?
Fox 45 has been following the controversy surrounding bike lanes in Baltimore City and in the county for months. For our coverage, head to our website, foxbaltimore.com.
To press Baltimore City Public Schools after one of its high school math teachers was arrested for rape. And here's what we know so far. Right now, the suspect is being held in jail without bond. Yesterday, Baltimore City Public Schools confirmed the high school teacher was placed on administrative leave following his arrest.
Teaches math at Reach Partnership. That's here in Baltimore. He's been employed by the city school system for the past year and a half, we're told. And according to court documents, the 46-year-old was arrested February 3rd after an adult called police and reported that he had raped a minor family member earlier that day. The document states the victim told investigators Pitts had in fact been raping her for the past 5 years.
Now, we questioned the district if the school was aware of any prior complaints involving Pitts and his students, asking how many other complaints have been filed against Mr. Pitts and what, if any, disciplinary action was taken. And is the district working with police to ensure there are no other potential victims? As of tonight, we have not received a response. Still ahead, Baltimore City in a race against the clock to spend more than $640 million in COVID relief money. Why one expert says the lack of spending shows a lack of leadership in City Hall.
A cyber attack impacting pharmacies across the country. I'm Atra El-Nashar with what we know about the suspected foreign actor behind the breach.
I'm tracking our next weather maker. It's already leading to a few spotty showers a little bit farther west, but in our state, that rain will continue overnight, and it could lead to some wet roads early tomorrow morning. Temperatures drop to the upper 30s, low 40s, and then a cool day in store by the afternoon. I'll let you know what to expect coming up in my full forecast.
You can watch Fox 45 News for free anytime on Amazon Fire TV or Samsung TV Plus.
A branch of United Health Group says it was hit by a cyber attack impacting pharmacies across the country. The company says it believes it was carried out by a suspected nation-state associated actor.
And that attack comes as top government officials warn about efforts underway in China and Russia to disrupt critical U.S. infrastructure. National correspondent Atra El-Nashar has the latest.
Critical services in the U.S. disrupted for a second time this week. United Health Group subsidiary Change Healthcare, which processes prescriptions for pharmacies across the country, was hacked by a suspected nation-state associated cybersecurity threat actor, according to a company report filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission Wednesday. Pharmacies impacted include CVS locations and military health facilities like Naval Hospital Camp Pendleton. Center for Strategic and International Studies researcher Jim Lewis.
The people who do this, it's a business for them. They're just in it for the money. It could be a state, but usually it's a criminal group. Usually it's Russian.
According to the center's active list of cyber incidents, in January alone, Russian hackers launched attacks against the governments of Sweden and Australia and residential webcams in the capital of Ukraine. Criminal hackers usually seek a ransom payment. Then there's state-sponsored cyber attacks by Russia or China that U.S. officials warn aim to disrupt critical infrastructure. It's why an AT&T outage this week raised alarm bells, though it was later confirmed to be caused by a software update.
Would adversaries or bad actors be paying attention to the AT&T outage to look for vulnerabilities?
Telecom, like healthcare, is a primary target for hackers. We know it gets tremendous attentions from the Russians, the Chinese, maybe the Iranians. And yeah, they're going to look and say, how did that happen? Could I duplicate it in the event of a crisis?
Russia believed to be developing an anti-satellite nuclear weapon for outer space, and the FBI says China's hacking program is bigger than any other major nation combined.
Cyber threats to our critical infrastructure represent real-world threats to our physical safety.
The government urging companies to bolster their cyber defenses to avoid a worst-case scenario that would cut Americans off from critical services. In Washington, I'm Atrel Nashar reporting.
That brings us to our national question of the day. What do you think is the biggest national security risk for the U.S.? So far, 94% of those who voted say border security. To weigh in, head to foxbaltimore.com/vote and click on the Pulse tab.
Well, coming up on Fox 45, a back-and-forth battle over property tax assessment delays. Why the state says a vendor didn't tell them about a key deadline, but the vendor says it's the state that alerted them in the first place.
Many are branding this year's CPAC as a run for vice president. I'm Kayla Gaskins at the conference in Maryland. Coming up, hear from attendees on who they would like to see Donald Trump pick as his number 2.
We're following 3 big stories now at 10:30. Thousands of Republicans gathering right here in Maryland for the annual Conservative Political Conference, or CPAC. A look at the event and who attendees say their top picks are for vice president.
The state says a contractor didn't tell them they were going to miss a key deadline, but the vendor says it's the state that alerted them in the first place. The back and forth over who's responsible.
And Baltimore mayoral candidates are sounding the alarm over ARPA spending, claiming the mayor has mismanaged those federal dollars.
This one-time amount of money, the city will never see again.
It is the only way for us to be confident that this $641 million once-in-a-generation gift hasn't been completely frittered away.
And that's where we begin tonight. Thanks to the federal government, Baltimore City is sitting on more than $500 million in COVID relief funds, but time is running out to spend it.
Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor has more on this looming deadline and what it could mean for your tax dollars.
When it comes to spending the city's ARPA funding, the potential risk is simple. If we don't use it, we lose it. And there is still a lot of money that needs to be moved.
Baltimore City now in a race against the clock to spend $641 million COVID relief dollars. The one-time gift from the federal government coming with a time crunch. All of the money must be obligated by the end of 2024 and spent by the end of 2026. Last week, during a hearing in front of the city council.
It's a lot of money that has to be moved in a short period of time.
The mayor's chief recovery officer admitting the city's slow spending amid a fast approaching deadline is cause for concern.
The obligation deadline is for sure going to be a challenge.
Obligations meaning the money has been formally assigned and approved by the BOE. 3 years into the program, the city only halfway there and only spending 29% of the funding.
Baltimore City ranks very low when it comes to actually spending federal relief funds.
According to taxpayer advocate David Williams, the lack of spending shows a lack of leadership inside City Hall.
Starting with the mayor all the way down to the city council. Everyone is to blame here. They're going to be in such a rush to obligate this money that it's going to be spent in areas that it shouldn't be spent on.
In addition to the pace of which the money is being spent, Mayor Scott's political challengers.
I don't want to see us lose that money.
Also challenging his spending priorities.
The fire department not getting zero amount, which is a 24/7 day a week operation, could have benefited.
Completely frittered away to repay donors and developers and help improve your re-election chances.
Under general city services, the mayor allocating $6.5 million to the police department for new patrol cars, $5 million to DPW for new garbage trucks, and $9 million for infrastructure improvements, of which only $2.5 million has actually been spent, and in total encompassing just 3% of the budget. Meanwhile, dozens of nonprofits across the city slated to receive twice as much and already completing 10 times the spending.
The Walters Art Museum and the BMA, incredible institutions, also institutions that have some of the most affluent board of directors in America.
This funding, one of the few positives to come out of the pandemic. But critics argue the mayor's spending has been short-sighted and self-serving.
And that's the biggest shame of this all, is that this was used more as a political tool rather than a way to help people in Baltimore City.
Mayor Scott's challengers have also requested a fiscal audit of the city's ARPA spending so far to ensure transparency over your tax dollars. Yesterday, we reached out to the mayor's office asking for a response to that request, but as of news time tonight, still no answer. Reporting in Baltimore City, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Well, this isn't the first time that we've heard the city is spending ARPA dollars slowly. At a city council hearing on that topic in September, it was revealed Baltimore had spent just 18% of the money. That means in the past 5 months, the city spent just 11% of the $641 million. At that September hearing, the director of the office that oversees ARPA spending gave a list of reasons why city agencies have been slow to spend.
That there is no spending because of some challenges around environmental review, that development was delayed due to a combination of financing challenges. In addition, we know that construction costs are continuing to escalate.
And that brings us to our question of the day. Do you think Baltimore leaders have mismanaged ARPA funds? So far, 98% of those who voted say yes. To make your voice heard, head to foxbaltimore.com/vote.
Senate President Bill Ferguson is addressing the problems with property tax assessments after more than 100,000 notices weren't sent to homeowners.
I'm extremely disappointed that these notices were not delivered on time, but that doesn't mean that we should not have a system that relies on accurate assessments. And so we're working to consider different options. I don't believe this is about foregoing revenue. I think this is about making sure that our tax system is equitable, efficient, and fair.
Fox 45's Jessica Babb is taking a closer look at what led to the problem in the first place.
The state works with the vendor who's responsible for processing, printing, and mailing the tax assessment notices. The vendor says last fall, the state changed the format of the assessments, which changed the way they processed them. The vendor says even though they thought they could do it, they admit they messed up. Property tax comes with the price tag of owning a home. It's money that helps fund police, schools, and roads. To determine how much you pay, the state of Maryland will reassess your property. But before the tax assessment gets to your mailbox, it's processed here, inside League Industries, with the organization League for People with Disabilities. As the name suggests, they employ people with disabilities.
I am sorry for the League's part in all this, but it is for a good cause.
David Greenberg, the president and CEO of the League for People with Disabilities, says they work with the state on many different jobs.
10 years we have not messed this thing up. We did mess it up this year, but we're willing to fix it.
But this year, when faced with a new format of the assessment,
they wanted this new system, and we wanted to accommodate the state. And so we thought we could do it. Clearly, we were wrong. We didn't have enough time to test it out and make it happen correctly.
He says they thought they were done last December, but says in January,
people were getting duplicates and some people weren't getting them.
In an email, the state says the vendor didn't alert them to the full scope of the problem until after the legal deadline to send out notices, which is January 30th.
I'm surprised to hear that the state wasn't notified because SDAT didn't know about it. They're the ones who brought it to our attention.
As the contractor performing this project, should you have known about it before they brought it to your attention?
I would have loved to know about it before we brought it to our attention. We thought we had done a good job, mailed them all out, didn't realize that the batches were mixed up.
With the missed deadline, the state is working with the General Assembly to draft legislation to fix the problem, rolling the dice to make sure it gets done this session. Without it, the state says this year they would lose $3.1 million in revenue, and counties would lose about $25.3 million. But the full scope of the impact isn't clear. Who should be accountable for that?
I think, first of all, I think that the state and our legislatures should understand that mistakes happen.
In the meantime, the League for People with Disabilities is filling these blue envelopes, making sure the missing tax assessments get mailed out.
Should we get the contract again, we would test out the software well in advance.
The notices will be sent before February 28th, and I also followed up with the state again to get to the bottom of when they knew there was a problem. They said while they knew some people didn't receive their notices, it wasn't until the vendor investigated in February where they learned 100,000 people were impacted. In Baltimore City, Jessica Babb, Fox 45 News.
South Carolina will hold its Republican primary tomorrow, a vote that often dictates how the rest of the Republican primaries will go.
And in South Carolina, Nikki Haley is losing to me. It looks like she's going to lose by 25 or 30 points.
South Carolina will vote on Saturday, but on Sunday, I'll still be running for president. I'm not going anywhere.
Former President Trump is widely expected to beat Nikki Haley, the state's former governor. But even if she loses in her home state, Haley says she's going to stay in the race. Experts say South Carolina is a good predictor of how the rest of the South will vote.
Meanwhile, prominent Republicans gathered right here in Maryland for the 2024 Conservative Political Action Conference, or CPAC. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins was at this year's event where organizers appear to be setting up CPAC as a coronation of Donald Trump as the nominee.
CPAC, the annual gathering of prominent conservatives, confirming this is still very much Donald Trump's Republican Party.
Where are my MAGA, ultra MAGA patriots at today?
The speakers list full of Trump loyalists like Congressman Byron Donalds, South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem, and former Trump cabinet member Ben Carson.
Our justice system has been weaponized.
Virtually no signs of the never Trump wing of the GOP.
Trump is it, beginning and end.
Many attendees see the primary race as a done deal.
He won right from the get-go. He won before it began.
Even though Nikki Haley hasn't dropped out, despite having a near impossible path to victory.
I think everybody understands that Trump is the front runner. I mean, obviously, right? Anybody that thinks differently is not paying attention.
That confidence, though, has some attendees worried.
I worry about it because of complacency.
We have a tendency as a society to pump our fist before it's over.
Regardless, many here are looking ahead.
Who do you think would be an ideal running mate for Donald Trump?
Tim Scott.
I think Tim Scott, but equally Ron DeSantis.
I like Kristi Noem.
Believe it or not, I think Ben Carson would be a very, very smart pick.
I like Byron Donalds.
Tulsi Gabbard.
Our democracy is under attack.
The organizers even calling this year's conference their version of The Apprentice, a reference to Trump's former reality TV show. Despite being on Trump's shortlist, Ron DeSantis appeared to remove himself from the running, according to sources who were on a private phone call DeSantis held with his supporters. On that call, DeSantis reportedly speculating identity politics will play a role in the decision.
CPAC conducting their own straw poll this year, asking attendees who they see as Trump's ideal VP. The list includes some unconventional choices like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's running as an independent for president. Trump himself will be speaking here on Saturday. At CPAC, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
Tomorrow marks 2 years since Russia invaded Ukraine, and President Biden says Western support must remain the same as it did 2 years ago.
We can't walk away now. And that's what Putin is betting on. He's betting on we're going to walk away.
To mark the anniversary, Biden imposed sanctions on more than 500 targets in response to the death of Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny and Moscow's ongoing full-scale invasion.
Now, the sanctions mark the largest single event since the start of the war. They focus on Russian military firms and financial institutions that contribute to the war efforts. They also target 3 Russian prison officials the United States believes were connected to Navalny's death, which the president has said Russian President Vladimir Putin was responsible for. Putin has already been sanctioned by the United States.
New details emerging surrounding a deadly outbreak of rare bacteria tied to eye drops. After the break, Spotlight on America investigates the failures that led to the death of 7 people.
And I'm tracking the next chance for rain. We're already seeing a few showers farther west. That rain will move over our